Kim Jae-hoon placed the last slide at 9:14 in the morning. 712 pages. 3 years. The topic, molecular mechanisms of cellular necrosis under anaerobic conditions. Simply put, how cells die when oxygen runs out. How they break down from the inside, by what protocol, in what order. Professor Won sat at the table, flipping through a printout of the 3rd chapter with the look of a man who had already decided on the grade but wanted to make sure the procedure was followed. Chapter 3, page 184, he said. You claim that the mitochondrial cascade under ischemic conditions is triggered earlier than is generally accepted in the literature. 12 to 15 minutes earlier. Yes. Your data were obtained from cell cultures and from isolated tissues. The data are in Appendix B. I saw it. The professor turned the page. If you are right, this changes resuscitation protocols. That is precisely why I wrote it, said Kim Jae-hoon. The professor looked at him over his glasses. Something in that gaze was neither approval nor disapproval. Simply assessment. The way one looks at a complex instrument before switching it on. Good, he said. Continue. Kim Jae-hoon moved to the next slide. Outside, rain was falling. The usual Seoul November, gray, dense. The auditorium was warm, smelling of old books and coffee from a thermos someone on the committee had brought and forgotten to open. He spoke methodically, structurally. 3 years of work fit into 40 minutes of presentation. Every slide calibrated. Every thesis backed by data. On the 23rd slide, something went wrong. Not immediately. At first, just a slight pressure in the chest. Kim Jae-hoon decided it was nerves, though he rarely got nervous. He continued. The pressure intensified, no longer slight, now real, as if someone had placed a palm on his chest and begun to press slowly. His left arm went numb up to the elbow. This is not nerves, he realized. This is classic symptomatology. I have read about this, written about this. Myocardial ischemia. The cascade triggers earlier than is generally accepted, 12 to 15 minutes earlier. Page 184. I know what is happening at the molecular level right now. This is entirely useless knowledge at the moment. Professor Won was asking something about the methodology of the 4th chapter. The voice came as if through water. Kim Jae-hoon lowered himself onto the chair. Not dramatically, simply his legs stopped holding him. He saw the committee exchange glances. Professor Won stood up. The last thing he thought about was not his family, not his life, not what he had not managed to do. He thought about the 23rd slide that remained on the screen. An unfinished presentation. Unprofessional, Kim Jae-hoon managed to think. Darkness came without warning. The darkness was nothing. No pain, no peace, no light at the end of the tunnel that people with near-death experiences write about. Simply the absence of everything, like a switched-off monitor, a blank screen. Then something changed. Not a voice. More like information that appeared in his mind just as naturally as a thought appears. Without a source, without direction. Host detected. Parameters: scientist, specialization biochemistry, cellular necrosis, mechanisms of decay. Analytical type of thinking. Compatibility with the system, 94.7%. Abnormally high indicator. Evolution system initialized. Form of rebirth. Ghoul, lowest rank. Class, mindless undead. Exception recorded. The host retains reason and memory. Such a case in the system's database is the first. A long pause, as if the system was processing an unexpected result. Standard path of undead evolution, through absorption of life force. For this host, the path is changed. Evolution through understanding. The host is a scientist. The system adapts. Important. Magic in the world of rebirth does not exist as a natural resource accessible to all. Mages do not draw mana from the air. They extract it, process it, accumulate it through specific physical processes. Spells are not ready-made formulas. Each is created by the host through understanding of principles. The system does not give spells. The system gives tools of understanding. The host must think. Another pause. Last note. The name Kim Jae-hoon belongs to the world that has ended. In the new world, the host will choose a name himself when ready. Until then, nameless. Nameless, thought Kim Jae-hoon in the darkness. Good. The first thing to do is understand where I am. The second, understand what I am now. The third, not die again before figuring out the first two. Methodically, as always, he opened his eyes. More precisely, he tried to understand what it means to open eyes in a body that does not quite work as a body. Vision was there, but strange. The world looked like a shot in the infrared range. Living creatures glowed, the non-living were merely silhouettes. Every tree around gave off a faint reddish glow, not bright, barely noticeable. Far off between the trees, something was moving, bright, saturated, pulsating. Living creatures, he identified. I see life force directly. This is not a metaphor. Literal infrared vision of the undead. Logical. A predator must see its prey. Hands. He raised them in front of his face, methodically, as during a medical examination. Gray-green skin, dense, with bluish veins. Fingers slightly longer than normal, nails dark, almost black, sharpened. The muscles beneath the skin read as wrong. Not atrophied, not strong. Different, structured differently. Biomechanics of the undead, he thought. Muscles without mitochondria, or with altered ones. The energy cycle is different. No aerobic metabolism, meaning no need for oxygen. What does this body run on? The system answered, not with words, but with information that appeared as a flash of understanding. The body of the undead operates on necrotic energy, Ne. Source: decomposition of organics, absorption of life force from living creatures, or for the sentient, through understanding of the principles of necrosis and independent production. Ne is not magic. Ne is a product of specific biochemical processes characteristic of the undead. Necrotic energy, he repeated mentally. Not magic. Biochemistry. Different biochemistry, but biochemistry all the same. This I understand. That is good. He stood up slowly, checking every movement. The body obeyed awkwardly, like something foreign. But it obeyed. Coordination was basic, animal, wired into the muscles. A ghoul moved instinctively even without the host's reason. The forest around, dense, nocturnal, unfamiliar. Trees thick, bark dark, leaves of a strange shape with 3 lobes. Not a Korean forest, not an earthly forest. Another world. Accepted. Smell. That was what came first and was truly unexpected. The ghoul perceived smells differently than a human. Not aromas, but chemical signatures. Every tree gave its own set of molecules, the soil another, the air a third. And far off in the direction of the pulsating glow, a complex multi-layered chemical trail. Living creatures. Several. Hunt, came the instinctive urge, then reason overrode it. No, observation for now. He spent the first night motionless. He sat at the roots of a large tree, watching, thinking. The body demanded no movement. A ghoul could stand for hours without fatigue. One of the advantages of the absence of aerobic metabolism. The system gave information in measured doses, not like a textbook, but like answers to the right questions. Kim Jae-hoon asked questions methodically. How is magic structured in this world? System. Magic in the world of Aaron is based on the thread. The finest energetic structures permeating living organisms. The thread is not an external resource. It is produced by the body of the mage through a specific organ called the core. The core forms in humans at awakening, accidental or intentional, between the ages of 10 and 25. Without a core, there is no magic. A mage with a core produces thread constantly, accumulates it in the core, expends it on spells. So the thread is a biological product, like ATP in earthly biochemistry, produced by an organ, accumulated, expended. How are spells structured? System. Spells are structured releases of thread. They do not exist as ready-made formulas. A mage understands the principle of the effect they wish to create, constructs a release of thread of the needed shape and intensity, releases it. The deeper the understanding of the principle, the more effective the spell. Mages study for years. Most use others' developments. Templates passed down by teachers. A few create their own. Original ones are an order of magnitude more powerful than template ones. Understood. A spell is not a word or a gesture. It is a structured thought backed by energy. Whoever understands the physics of the process better creates the better spell. This is my domain. How do sword mages work? System. Magic swordsmen. Threadblades. A special class, not pure mages. Instead of external spells, they direct the thread inward, into a weapon or the body. Thread in a blade enhances cutting properties, allows cutting of things that cannot be cut physically, including magical structures. Thread in the body enhances physical characteristics, requires a different type of core. Denser, slower to accumulate, but delivers a high single-burst output. Thread blades are considered the most dangerous opponents of the undead. Their blades cut necrotic structures directly. Blades cut necrotic structures, he noted, meaning my enemies. Remember? How is the undead structured from the system's perspective? System. The undead in the world of Aaron is not a magical phenomenon. Necrotic energy is the opposite pole of the thread. Where the thread is, life and growth. Where NE is, decay and stillness. Both energies exist in nature. Humans use the thread. The undead exist on NE. Necromancers are a rare exception. Mages who have learned to work with NE, to convert thread into NE and back, considered heretics. Most have been executed. Necromancers executed, he repeated. Meaning not only is the undead hostile to humans, the path itself is considered unlawful. Excellent. This simplifies the situation. No, it does not simplify, but it is honest to know in advance. At dawn he heard the first sounds of the world. Birds, strange voices, non-earthly tonalities, somewhere far off, ringing, metallic, rhythmic, a bell, meaning a settlement, civilization, and from the other direction, footsteps, heavy, several pairs, crashing through the undergrowth without caution, chemical signatures struck before they appeared. The smell of sweat, leather, metal, and something sharp, something he had already learned to identify as the thread. Mages, or blades. The ghoul's instinct said one word, hide. Reason confirmed. He slid behind the roots of the tree, lay flat, did not move. The ghoul's body at rest emitted almost no NE. Chemically neutral, it merged with the soil. Three came out onto the edge of the forest. Young, around 20, in leather armor with metal inserts. Two held swords. Thread blades. Kim Jae-hun saw how the blades glowed faintly from within, with the same pulsating light as the people themselves. The third had no sword, carrying short rods in both hands. A mage. There was a trail here, said one of the swordsmen. A ghoul, lowest rank. Pass through at night. It won't go far, said the mage. The lowest are stupid. Search by the smell of decay. Stupid, noted Kim Jae-hun, lying 2 meters from them. Yes, usually. Strange, said the third. Quiet, attentive. He stopped almost above him, looking at the ground. There are tracks, then none. A lowest ghoul does not hide. The reflexes are not right. The mage shrugged. Maybe it retreated into a burrow. Check the bushes, Ren. Ren, the attentive one, slowly swept his gaze around the perimeter, stopped at the roots of the tree, directly above Kim Jae-hun. He sees, he realized, or senses. The thread senses NE at close range. Ren stepped closer. Kim Jae-hun did not move. He suppressed even the minimal activity the ghoul's body produced. Complete stillness, not instinct, a conscious decision. A corpse. Just a corpse. No reason. No activity. Ren stopped a meter away, looking at the roots. 1 second, 2, 3. There is nothing, he said at last. Already gone, most likely. Into the forest. Then let it go, said the mage. We need to be back behind the city wall before dawn. The three left. Kim Jae-hun lay still for another 15 minutes after the footsteps faded, in case someone returned. Then he stood up. He looked in the direction they had gone, toward the sound of the bell, toward the smell of smoke and food that the wind occasionally carried. A city, he thought. There are people there. There is knowledge, libraries, observations. Everything I need to understand this world. One cannot go there. A ghoul in a city means immediate death, or whatever the undead have instead of death. Not yet, but later. First, grow. The system flashed. Primary adaptation complete. The initial stage of evolution is open. Condition for the first evolution. Understand the mechanism of NE production by one's own body. Not absorption. Understanding the internal process. Observe. Think. Evolution will come? Understand the mechanism, repeated Kim Jae-hoon. Then we begin with anatomy. It was a strange experiment. Even by the standards of strange experiments. Kim Jae-hoon found a small stream. Water clean, the bottom stony. He sat by the water, placed his left hand before him, and began to study it methodically. Not from the outside, from the inside. The ghoul possessed one ability that Kim Jae-hoon had discovered by accident. NE could be concentrated within the body, directed like a current. When concentrated in the tissues, something resembling bioluminescence appeared, a faint blue glow beneath the skin. If NE is controllable from within, then the body has an internal nervous system for it, like the sympathetic nervous system for adrenaline, a separate network running in parallel. He concentrated NE in a finger. Watched. The blue glow pulsated. Unevenly at first, then he found the rhythm. It was there. Slow, quiet, an 8-second cycle. 8 seconds. This is not a heartbeat. The ghoul has none. This is the metabolic cycle of NE production, distribution, use, production again. Where is it produced? He traced the current using concentration of attention as a tool. Difficult, like trying to trace the movement of blood in one's own body without instruments. But possible. The NE came from the bones. Specifically from the bone marrow. Or from whatever had taken the place of bone marrow in the undead body. Of course, he understood, with that quiet satisfaction that comes when a hypothesis is confirmed. Bone marrow in living humans produces blood cells. The undead have no circulation. The organ remained, the function changed. Now it produces NE instead of blood cells. The same tissue, a different biochemical pathway. This is my source. The bones. The system flashed. Mechanism partially understood. Access opened. Active NE production. The host can intensify NE output consciously through concentration on the bone source. Efficiency. 12% of maximum. Insufficient for magic. Sufficient for accelerated bodily regeneration. 12%, he read, because he understood partially. Understand fully. Receive more. What I have not yet understood. Why precisely decay? NE is connected to necrosis, to decomposition. This is not coincidental. There must be a chemical reason. He thought for a long time, an hour, 2, sat by the stream and thought. In earthly biochemistry, decomposition is an enzymatic process. Bacteria, fungi, specific enzymes break down complex molecules into simple ones. This is a release of energy. A great deal of energy. The decomposition of 1 gram of organics yields more energy than combustion. NE is the energy of decomposition. Literally, the body of the undead is a bioreactor, constantly conducting controlled necrosis of its own tissues at the molecular level. It releases NE as a byproduct. It regenerates tissue in place of the used one. Controlled decomposition as an energy source. The system was silent for a second. Then, mechanism fully understood. Primary evolution initiated. It was uncomfortable. The body began to change. Not painfully, the undead did not feel pain in the usual sense. But the sensation was strange, like when a limb falls asleep, only everywhere simultaneously. NE concentrated. The bones, the primary source, restructured from within. The marrow tissue in them, if it could be called marrow, densified, organized, system. First evolution. Comprehending Ghoul. Rank E+. Changes. Body physically stronger by 40%. Skin denser, basic protection against physical damage. Regeneration active. Wounds close within minutes on minor damage. Vision expanded. In addition to life force, now sees flows of NE in the surrounding environment. Dead organics, decomposition, old bones. New organ unlocked. The source. The analog of the mage's core, inside the spine, in several nodes. Produces NE 8 times faster than a base ghoul. Accumulates it. Ability unlocked. NE constructs. The host can shape NE into structures outside the body. The principle is the same as with mage's spells, but on NE. No ready-made forms exist. The host creates them independently through understanding of the principle. Next evolution. Understand and create the first NE construct. Condition. The construct must function on an understood principle, not on intuition. Kim Jae-hyun stood after the transformation. He looked at his hands. The same. But beneath the skin he now saw his own glow. Blue, even. The source along the spine pulsated steadily, strongly. The source, he thought. The analog of the core in mages. Meaning I can do what mages do. With different energy, with a different result. But the principle is the same. NE constructs. Structures from the energy of decay. What can be built from decomposition? He looked at the stream. The water flowed. Alive. Clean. In earthly chemistry, decomposition is not only a destructive process. Decomposition releases components. The complex is broken down into the simple. The simple is the building material for the new complex. What if an NE construct is not destruction? What if it is disassembly and reassembly? He focused. Drew NE from the source. Felt the energy travel up the spine, into the arms, to the fingertips. Tried to release it. Not a mere burst, but a structure. A thin thread of NE between the fingers. It worked. Unevenly, unstably. The thread flickered, broke, unstable because there is no form. A thread without structure is simply an energy leak. A form is needed. He needed to understand what exactly to build. He looked at the dead leaf at his feet, picked it up, placed it on his palm, directed NE onto it, carefully, like a measured reagent into a test tube. The leaf began to decompose, quickly, in a controlled manner, right in his hand. In 30 seconds, a handful of dark powder. System. Primary NE construct created. Controlled necrosis of organics. Efficiency low, but the principle is correct. Skill unlocked. Touch of decay. Active decomposition of organics upon contact. Good, he thought. But this is destruction, primitive. Next question. Can I use the products of decomposition as material for a construct? The powder is molecules. Molecules are building material. If I control NE at the molecular level, I control matter at the molecular level. This is already interesting. 3 months in the forest gave much. Kim Jae-hyun hunted, not humans, animals. Not for food. The ghoul's body required no nourishment in the usual sense. NE was produced by the source. He hunted for study. Every killed animal is a specimen. The world's system as seen through the biology of its creatures. Tissues, organs, structures. Everything differed from earthly biology enough to be interesting. Wolves with a double spine, the nervous system duplicated, they do not lose coordination when the back is injured. Birds with bones filled not with air but with liquid. Dense, heavy, but very fast. The liquid delivered a hydraulic impulse upon a wing stroke. Snakes whose scales contained a microscopic amount of crystalline structure, essentially armor made of biological crystals. This world is different, he thought. Not coincidentally different. Here the thread is a biologically real force. It influences evolution. Creatures are adapted to a world where the thread exists. Their biology includes it. Meaning, my biology of the undead is also adapted to this world? I am part of this ecosystem, simply of the other pole. The second evolution came in the 6th week. The condition turned out to be unexpected. Not combat, not absorption. The system demanded create an NE construct that sustains a structure rather than destroys it. Sustains, he thought. NE is the energy of decay. How does it sustain a structure? The answer came after a week of observations. He was looking at a rotting tree in the forest. Old, fallen, covered in fungus. The fungus was decomposing the tree, yet was itself growing. It used the energy of decomposition to build its own structure. The decomposition of one thing, the construction of another. NE does not destroy everything indiscriminately. It transforms. It breaks down one structure and passes the components to another. If I control NE, I control this transformation process. I can direct the components wherever I wish. The bones of a dead animal are calcium, phosphorus, collagen in an altered form. If I release NE into the bones, break down their structure and reassemble it in a form I define. He tried with the bone of a dead wolf. Knee. Carefully, in a measured way, like a scalpel and not an axe. The bone began to glow blue. The molecular structure, he felt it through NE as a tactile sensation, began to restructure. After 20 minutes, the bone had changed its form. Not perfectly, not precisely, but under control. System. Second evolution. Ghoul Necroconstructor. Rank D. Skill unlocked. NE sculpting. Restructuring of dead matter through NE. Speed low. Precision depends on understanding of the material's structure. Skill unlocked. Bone armor. The host can grow a layer of restructured bone tissue on the body's surface. Temporary. Consumes accumulated NE. Body change. Height increased. Now 185 centimeters. Proportions closer to humanoid, less bestial. Skin lightening, pale, not gray-green. Eyes completely white with no pupil visible from the outside. White eyes, he noted. This will be noticeable among people. Not my problem yet. First, grow more. On the 3rd month, he saw a city for the first time. Not up close, from a hill, 3 kilometers away. Walls high, stone, with towers. Above the gates, a glow of the thread, magical fortifications. Inside the walls, houses, smoke, movement. He watched for a long time. No copy of himself, he was not a swarm. But observation worked. People were heading toward the gates, peasants with carts, merchants, guards patrolling the perimeter. Outside the walls, a small suburb, a market, a smithy, a human settlement. There is information there. I understand the language. The system provided a basic translation. But writing, culture, knowledge about magic, that needs to be observed from within. How to enter. In a body that will be immediately identified as undead. He thought about this for a week. NE sculpting worked on dead matter. His body, undead, formerly dead matter. Meaning in theory he could alter his own body through NE. Skin white, better than gray-green. But white eyes, too noticeable. Smell. The chemical signatures of the undead, a living person would sense it. No body heat. At the touch, it is immediately clear. Problems. Eyes, smell, temperature. Solution. Through NE. Possible. Eyes, he tried to alter the pigmentation. Through NE sculpting, at the molecular level, add pigment to the iris. It took 2 days of fine, precise work. Result. Dark gray eyes. Not ideal. In bright light, the pupil still looked wrong. But in half darkness, from a distance, it would pass. Smell. More complex. The undead body secreted specific molecules, byproducts of the controlled necrosis. Complete suppression was impossible. It was a byproduct of the source's operation. But it could be masked. If over the specific smell, another, stronger one. He found herbs and resins in the forest, experimented for several days with compositions, drawing on what he knew about the chemistry of scents from earthly biochemistry. He found a combination that covered the smell of the undead sufficiently. Not completely, but enough that an ordinary person would not notice. A mage with trained perception would notice. But mages do not wade into market crowds conducting searches. Temperature, the most difficult. The body produced no heat. The metabolism was different, cold to the touch. No solution through NE yet. No understanding of how to simulate heat exchange. Meaning long-sleeved clothing, gloves. Do not touch people, for now. 3 months in the forest. One plan. Zoten, nameless, looked at the lights of the city from the hill. It is time. Before the first outing, a name. The system had said, you will choose it yourself when you are ready. I am ready enough, he thought. Not fully, but enough. The name had to be of this world. He had heard the names of hunters who walked into the forest. Ren, Oke, Mirvas, Tylo. Something simple, something that raises no questions, something that can be said without thinking. Zoten came unexpectedly. Zoten, simply Zoten. No meaning he knew, no history, simply a sound that felt right. Good. Zoten. The system recorded it silently. Zoten, former Kim Jae-hoon, biochemist, postgraduate student, a man who died at a desk defending a dissertation about how cells die, put on a long cloak found on a dead bandit in the forest, pulled up the hood, pushed his hands into gloves, walked toward the city. First visit, observation only. Buy nothing, speak to no one without necessity. Watch, listen, remember, methodically, as always. The gates of the city of Tyrum, open, the guards checked the entering carts cursorily. Pedestrians they barely glanced at. Zoten entered the city, blended into the crowd, the first step taken. The city smelled of everything at once. Smoke from the smithies, spices from the trading stalls, manure from the horses at the hitching posts, fresh bread from the bakery at the end of the street. To an ordinary person, an ordinary city smell. To Zoten, with his chemical perception, each source separate, distinct, like layers on a chromatogram. He walked slowly, not because he was afraid, but because he was watching. Tyrum was a mid-sized city by fantasy standards, as Zoten could judge from the little he had seen. Not a capital, an administrative center of the region. Stone buildings in the center, wooden ones on the outskirts, the main street paved. Guards patrolled in pairs, with swords and short rods at the belt. Not mages, but with magical instruments. A market in the center, by a fountain. Zoten stood at the edge and observed. Social structure, merchants, townspeople, guards, cloaks of different colors, not merely fashion, a system. Blue cloaks, city officials. Green with a stripe, threadblades on patrol. White with a symbol, mages. Gray, ordinary townspeople. My cloak is brown, neutral, peasant. It does not draw attention. A mage by the trading row, young, around 18, buying something from an herb merchant. A white cloak with 3 blue stripes on the sleeve. Zoten watched, his vision. He could see the mage's core in the chest, small, young, pulsating moderately. The core in the chest. My source along the spine. Different anatomical positions, different architecture. Why? In the living, the heart is at the center, the primary organ of life. The core near the heart, logical, the thread is connected to life. In the undead, the spine is the primary load-bearing structure. The source there, also logical. Symmetry, interesting. The mage bought herbs and moved on. Zoten quietly followed at a distance, within the crowd. Observed how he walked, how he held the rod, how he occasionally murmured something. Mages constantly murmur something, he noted. Not spells, too quiet and inconsistent, more like mnemonics. They are holding some construct in the mind, a constant background process. This is interesting, meaning a mage does not simply use magic, he constantly maintains it. As I maintain the masking layer on the skin, passively, in the background, constantly expending NE parallel processing. Mages have it too. The library was found on the 3rd day. Not immediately. At first he thought it was an administrative building. Stone, old, with narrow windows. But people entered empty-handed and left carrying books or scrolls. Public, or semi-public. He entered on the 4th day, after observing who went in and out. There were no guards. An elderly man at the entrance checked not documents, payment, a small coin. Zoten had no coin. He solved this problem simply. Found a dropped coin on the street. Not magic, simply attentiveness, and an hour of waiting near a busy part of the market. People drop things. The librarian took the coin without looking. Zoten went inside. The smell of old paper, ink, dust. The first smell that did not immediately break down into chemical components. It was simply pleasant. A memory of earthly life, of laboratories, of stacks of printed scientific articles. Good, he thought. Nothing pleasant for a long time. Shelves from floor to ceiling. Books, scrolls, bound notebooks. He read the spines slowly. The language did not come perfectly. The system had given him a foundation, but not everything. Some words were unclear. Technical terms, archaic forms. He found the section on magic, basic theories. Took a book. Sat in the far corner, where the light was dimmer, where the hood could be kept on without questions. Read, Fundamentals of the Thread for Beginning Practitioners. The title was simple. The content proved richer than it appeared. The author, one Vane Taros, mage of the 4th rank. The date of writing, 240 years ago. Zoten read slowly, making mental notes. On the nature of the thread. The thread is not an elemental force like fire or water. The thread is the energy of the life process, released by a living organism as a byproduct of metabolism. The more complex the organism, the more thread it produces. A mage with a developed core produces in a day an amount of thread sufficient to illuminate a city. An untrained person releases hundreds of times less and cannot use even that. A byproduct of metabolism, he underlined mentally. Not a special organ creating magic from nothing. The body lives. It releases the thread. The core is simply an accumulator and amplifier, like a capacitor in an electrical circuit. On constructs, a spell is not a word and not a gesture. It is a structured release of thread with a given form. The form determines the effect. A mage does not command fire to burn. The mage builds from thread a construct that reproduces the conditions of combustion. The more precise the construct, the more precise the fire. A novice creates fire that is large and useless. A master creates fire the size of a needle that cuts metal. There, Zoten stopped. This is important. A mage does not create fire. He reproduces the conditions of combustion through the thread. Physics. The specific physics of a specific phenomenon. Meaning, the better I understand the physics of a phenomenon, the better my NE construct. I spent 3 years studying the biochemistry of decay. I understand necrosis better than any mage in this city. Potentially my NE constructs should be significantly more precise than anything they create. But I understand only necrosis. I need to expand. He read for another 3 hours, left before closing. Outside, evening tea room, lights coming on in windows, guards changing at the gates. Zoten stood at the library exit and thought, come here every day. Read. This is the foundation. But books give theory. Live observation is needed. The Thread Academy in Tyrum was located on the northern side of the city. Not the kingdom's main academy, a local, regional one, but a real one, with students, with practical lessons, with a training ground behind the building where mages practice constructs. Zoten found a spot behind the training ground fence, a narrow passage between warehouses, from which everything was visible. He came every day at dusk when lessons ended and the students practiced independently. Watched. Recorded in memory. More precisely, in the system, which allowed marking observations. A first-year student. Creating a fire construct. The form is wrong, ragged. Burns chaotically. Thread is spent 8 times more than necessary. The reason? He does not understand that combustion requires 3 components: fuel, oxidizer, temperature. He creates only temperature. The rest he takes from the air by chance. A third-year student. A shield construct. Thread condensed into a plane. Holds a physical blow well. Holds a magical blow moderately. The reason for its weakness: the structure is too uniform. It does not simulate layering. A monolith is weaker than a laminated material. A master practices with students. A water construct. takes moisture from the air, concentrates it, shapes it. This is interesting. He is not creating water. He is collecting water that already exists. Thread as tweezers, not as a source of matter. Principle. Thread does not create matter. Thread controls already existing matter or reproduces physical conditions. This is a fundamental limitation. And NE? NE also does not create matter. But NE disassembles an existing structure and reassembles it. That is different. Deeper control of matter. If I understand correctly, NE operates at the molecular level, thread at the macro level. A mage moves water with a bucket. I move water molecules one by one. Slower, but more precisely, and more irreversibly. What I have reassembled remains reassembled. The system flashed quietly. Observation recorded. Access to comparative analysis of thread and NE unlocked. The host has understood the key distinction. Discovery of this principle counted as condition for the third evolution, partially fulfilled. Additional condition, practical application of the understood principle. Practical application, he repeated. What can I do with the understanding of molecular control of matter that a mage cannot? Zoten returned to the forest. He needed space and time without people nearby. He chose an object, a stone. Small, gray, ordinary. Stone is inorganic. NE works on organics, that is known. But stone contains mineral structures, crystal lattices. If NE is the control of molecular structures, then in theory. He directed NE into the stone. The sensation was different from organics. Denser, more complex. The structure did not yield. NE slid across the surface like water on glass. It does not work directly. Why? Organics contains carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. The molecules are complex, flexible, with many bonds. Ne catches onto these bonds. In organics, simple ionic lattices, no flexible bonds, no grip. But the stone contains organic inclusions, microscopic. Traces of ancient living organisms in the rock. Use them as intermediaries. He found the organic inclusions through Ne, like a probe, very finely, patiently, found them. Several points in the stone's structure, negligibly small but present, directed Ne through them. Not into the stone, around the stone, using the organics as anchor points, created a network of connections. Pulled. The stone did not shatter, did not change shape, but it shifted, by 2 centimeters. Of its own accord, without physical contact. Zoten looked at this for 2 seconds. I moved a stone through Ne. A mage would have done the same with thread, faster and more impressively. Would have lifted the stone into the air, thrown it. But a mage could not have done what came next. He directed Ne again, not to move, but to alter. Through the organic anchors he acted on the stone's lattice. Slowly, very slowly, began shifting ions in the crystal structure. 20 minutes of work. The stone changed shape. Not crudely, not by fracture. Gradually the surface became smoother, the edges rounded, as if the stone had of its own accord taken on a more ordered form. I altered the crystal structure of inorganics through organic intermediaries. Not one mage in that academy would have done this. Thread does not work at that level. System. Principle, understood and applied. Third evolution unlocked. The transformation happened at night in the forest, well away from the city. The changes were significant. System. Third evolution. Lesser necromancer. Rank. C+. Body changes. Height 190 centimeters. Build. Ordinary human, lean. Skin pale, but within the human norm. Under special lighting, a faint bluish tint beneath the skin where the Ne channels run. Eyes dark gray at rest, blue upon Ne activation. Voice altered. A slight double resonance upon activation of necrotic skills, normal in ordinary speech. Source, expanded. Now not only the spine, the source is distributed throughout the entire skeleton. Ne output increased 15 times compared to the previous form. Skill unlocked. Necromancy. Raise. The host can raise a dead creature using Ne as a substitute for life force. The raised creature retains its physical structure, has no mind, obeys the host. The quality of the raised creature depends on the host's understanding of the creature's biology. Skill unlocked. Ne construct. Structural field. The host creates an Ne field with a radius of up to 5 meters. Within the field, molecular structures of dead matter can be controlled simultaneously. Skill unlocked. Read death. The host, upon touching a dead object or corpse, receives information on how it died, when, and under what conditions. The chemical trace of death. Important change. Masking has become significantly easier. No mage below the 3rd rank will sense undead in the host during a standard scan. Full immersion. Mask does not exist, but basic masking has been significantly reinforced. Until the 4th evolution, create your own first necrotic spell. Not apply someone else's. Create from scratch through understanding of the principle. Your own spell, Zoten read. Not a template, not a copy. Your own. Based on what? Based on what I know. The biochemistry of necrosis, molecular principles, what I have learned observing mages. What mages cannot do. Where my understanding is unique. Enzymes, it came suddenly. Biocatalysts. They accelerate chemical reactions without participating in them themselves. In earthly biochemistry. The foundation of life. Here no one thinks about this. If I create an Ne construct that acts as an enzyme, catalyses necrosis in an enemy's tissue without direct application of force. Not to strike, not to destroy, to trigger a chain reaction that unfolds on its own. This is different. This is mine. Before developing the spell, he tested Raise. He found a dead deer in the forest, fresh, a day or two. Cause of death by the reed. Death skill, a wolf attack, the jugular vein torn. Raise depends on understanding of the creature's biology, he recalled. Meaning, study first. He spent an hour studying. The deer's anatomy in this world differed from the earthly one. 4 kidneys instead of 2, an additional nerve node at the base of the skull, the forelegs muscles with double tendons. Double tendons meaning jumping strength is higher, speed is high. During raise, the structure is preserved. If I understand the structure, the raised creature uses it correctly. He directed Ne, not into the heart, not into the brain. Through the structural field, evenly throughout the entire body. Ne filled the tissues as liquid fills a sponge. Every cell was saturated, not brought back to life, activated differently. The deer rose. Slowly, first the forelegs, then the hind legs. Stood. The head dropped slightly lower than normal, empty eyes without the spark of life. But the body worked. The muscles contracted correctly. Coordination was preserved. Command. Step forward. The deer stepped. Command. Run. The deer ran through the forest between the trees without hesitation. Not dead clumsy as in bad undead stories. Correctly. Because Zoten knew the biology and Ne had filled it right. Raise works as I thought, he noted. Quality depends on knowledge. I understand the structure, I get a fully capable fighter. I do not understand, I get a clumsy puppet. This is an important principle. A necromancer with a biological education is fundamentally stronger than one without it. Meaning the library. Keep reading. Anatomy, biology of this world. Every creature I study. A potentially higher quality raised being. He released the deer. The Ne left. The body fell dead again. Zoten looked at it. 3 months ago I was a fly in a rubbish bin, he caught himself. Then corrected. No, that is a different story. 3 months ago I was a ghoul in a forest, now a necromancer. We continue. He built it over 2 weeks. Not in motion, not in combat. At rest, by the stream. Methodically, as he had written his dissertation. Principle. Enzymatic catalysis of necrosis. Introduce into living tissue an Ne construct that acts as an enzyme. Triggers a cascade of necrosis from within. The reaction unfolds on its own, without additional energy. Problem 1. How to introduce the construct into living tissue. Direct contact? Yes. At range? Not yet. No skill for it. Problem 2. Control of the cascade's speed. Necrosis must unfold at a speed I set, not chaotically. This requires fine-tuning of the construct. Problem 3. Specificity. The construct must work on the biology of a specific tissue type, not destroy everything indiscriminately. He built the construct as one builds a molecular model in earthly chemistry. First in the mind, then verified with small NE releases. Broke it down, rebuilt. The 13th version worked. Test on a plucked leaf. Introduced the construct through touch. Stepped back. The leaf began to darken slowly from the center. Not burning, not decomposing chaotically. Structured necrosis. The cells were dying in a strict pattern, from the center to the edges, evenly. Speed. Controllable. Zotin felt the construct through the NE connection. Could speed it up, slow it down, stop it. After a minute, he stopped it. The leaf had darkened halfway. It stayed that way. The necrosis went no further. It works. System. First original spell created. Classification. Necrotic enzyme. First generation. Efficiency. Average. Principle. Unique. No analogs in the system's database. Fourth evolution unlocked. Condition. Apply the spell in real combat. In real combat, Zotin read. Logical. Laboratory conditions and a living opponent are different things. Meaning an opponent is needed. On the 22nd day in Tiram, he was noticed. Not by guards, not by mages from the academy. A girl of around 20, in simple clothing, dark hair, quick eyes. She sold herbs and tinctures at the market. He passed her every day on his way to the library. He paid no attention to her, an ordinary trading stall. She paid attention to him. On that day, as he passed, she said, without looking, busy hanging bundles of herbs. You have been here 22 days, every morning at the same time, always in the same direction. Zotin stopped. She had been counting the days. Perhaps, he said. To the library, she said. Then back to the southern gates. You never eat. You never take off your gloves. A pause. That is interesting. Absorbing gaze. No, that is a different story. Simply observation. She has good observational skills. Habits, he said neutrally. Everyone has habits, she agreed. But yours are very strict. Finally, she looked at him directly. Eyes light, attentive. You are not local. No. Where from? A cover story is needed. Quickly. The north, he said. A small settlement. Came to the city on business. Business that requires reading in a library for 22 days, she said. Not an accusation, simply a statement. Yes, she looked at him for another second, then returned to the herbs. My name is Eris, she said, as if in passing. If you need herbs, I have the best in the city. She gave her name. She is waiting for one in return. Zotin, he said. Zotin, she repeated. A strange name. Northern. She tied another bundle. Come by tomorrow, Zotin from the north. There is something interesting for those who read a great deal. Zotin left. He walked to the library and thought. She had noticed too much. 22 days she had been counting. Gloves, food. She had noticed. This is not a casual merchant. This is a person who was deliberately observing. Why? Red Death. No, she is alive. But there is something else. Chemical signatures. When she spoke, the scent of her thread. Faint? Untrained? Not a mage, but there is something in her. Or an informant of the academy. They watch unusual people near the gates. Careful, but do not run. If I run, that will confirm there is something to hide. Come by tomorrow. See what she offers. Methodically. He came the next day. Eris took out from under the counter a small flask. Dark glass, the stopper sealed with wax. This, she said, is a tincture from the root of dark ivy. Grows only in dead forests. A pause. Do you know what a dead forest is? No. A forest where NE is above normal. Where the undead live. She looked at him. The tincture from it has an interesting effect on ordinary people. It calms, relieves pain. A pause. And on certain other people it has no effect at all, because NE is something they already feel. Is that so? This is a test. She is offering me a tincture from an NE-saturated plant. If I take it and it has no effect, she will understand I am undead or a necromancer. If I refuse, also suspicious. If I take it, she will see the reaction. Zoten looked at the flask. Third option, take it and simulate a reaction. I have chemical understanding of how a calmed person behaves. I can imitate it. But she is smart. If she observed for 22 days, observing a reaction to a tincture will take no more than 2 minutes. Or a fourth option, honesty, partial. He took the flask, turned it in his hands through the gloves. Put it back. An interesting plant, he said. No, thank you. Why? Calmly. Because you conducted a test, he said quietly. And I have no intention of participating in it. Silence. Eris looked at him. Then, for the first time in all this time, she smiled. Not a merchant's smile. A real one. Quick. Clever, she said. Good. Honesty for honesty. I am an herbalist. My family has a gift. We sense NE. Not mages, not blades. Simply a gift. A rare one. A pause. You are not human. No, said Zoten. But sentient? Yes. And not evil. Otherwise, something would have happened in 22 days. She put the flask away. I am not going to report to the academy. Why? Because, she paused, I have reasons to dislike the academy. Personal reasons. A pause. And because a strange non-human who reads books in a library 20 days in a row is interesting. Not dangerous. Does read death work on the living? No. The skill is for dead objects only. But chemical signatures. When she spoke about the academy, the cortisol level in her scent rose, a slight quickening of breath. Real, not performed. Real grievance against the academy. Real. Good, said Zoten. Then do not tell. I will not, agreed Eris. But, a pause. Come by tomorrow. There are things you will not find in their library. Things you will not find in the academy's library, he repeated mentally as he left. About necromancy, about NE, about dead forests, about what the academy is hiding. Interesting. Very interesting. She lived above the shop. A basement, a separate entrance from the courtyard, a heavy door with a lock that Eris opened not with a key but with something else. A touch of the palm, a brief flash of her faint NE sensitivity activated a hidden mechanism. A magical lock on an herbalist without a core, noted Zoten. Someone made it for her. Or she inherited it. Inside, shelves. Not herbs as upstairs. Books. Old, some in poor condition, bindings crumbling. Scrolls. Several wooden boxes with seals. Eris took an oil lamp, placed it on the table. My great-grandmother, she said without preamble. An herbalist, like me. She lived 230 years ago. She worked with necromancers. Not as one herself, she helped. Herbs, ingredients, information. A pause. When the academy began purging necromancers, she hid everything. It was passed down through the female line. Each generation added something of its own. Why are you showing me this? Zoten asked directly. Eris looked at him. Because these records were intended for necromancers, she said simply. My great-grandmother wrote, keep this until the one who needs it comes. 230 years, no one came. A pause. You are the first in all this time who comes anywhere close to the description. 230 years, thought Zoten. The books have been waiting. May I read them? He asked. That is why I called you. He read for 3 days, barely leaving the basement. Eris brought food. He took it, held it in his hands, then quietly set it aside when she turned away. Courtesy required accepting it. The undead body required no food and could not digest normal nourishment without consequences. Another thing to resolve in the future, he noted in the background, the ability to eat ordinary food for the sake of cover. He read. The first book, a diary of a necromancer named Vesar. 190 years ago. Fourth month of practice. Today, I understood that the Academy lies deliberately. They say that NE is a destructive force, the opposite of life. This is an incomplete truth. NE is a force of transformation. It does not kill, it changes the state. The living to the dead, yes, but also the dead to the living, with the right approach. The Academy knows this. It conceals it. Because a necromancer who understands the full cycle is a mage who works with both NE and the thread simultaneously. This is a threat to the Academy's monopoly on magic. Zoten stopped. NE and the thread are not opposites, two poles of a single cycle. This is like catabolism and anabolism in earthly chemistry. Decomposition and synthesis. Two directions of a single metabolism. A cell does not choose one of them. It performs both constantly. If I can work with both, what does this mean for evolution? The system, quietly, in the background. Observation recorded. The principle of the dual cycle has been identified. Counted as condition for the fifth evolution, partially. Fifth, he noted. I am on the third. The system is looking far ahead. The second book, technical notes. A different handwriting, more precise. A necromancer named Sarah. The problem with all necromancers before me, they think of the raised as tools, dumb, obedient, controlled directly. This is weak. A tool breaks in a non-standard situation. I experimented with something different. A raised creature given autonomous behavioral logic, not reason, but rules. If an enemy, attack. If a threat to the master, protect. If an order, execute. Everything else, its own decision within the rules. Result: a raised creature with autonomous logic is 3 times more effective than one controlled directly, because the necromancer's mind is occupied with one opponent while there are many raised. Autonomous logic, thought Zoten. This is not necromancy, this is programming. The simplest kind, but programming. NE as a carrier of an algorithm. I understand algorithms, not through magical education, through biochemistry. Enzymes operate on algorithms. If the substrate fits, the reaction proceeds. If not, it does not. That is precisely the simplest algorithm. If an NE algorithm is embedded in a raised creature, not real-time commands but behavioral rules, that gives autonomy, recorded, marked for subsequent development. The third book, the oldest, the handwriting of Eris's great-grandmother, recorded from the words of necromancer Ilver before his execution. He said that the highest form of a necromancer is not the one who raises the dead. It is the one who stands on the boundary between NE and the thread, who understands both cycles and works with them simultaneously. The Academy calls this heresy. Ilver said it is simply the complete picture. Death without life is meaningless. Life without death is impossible. A necromancer who fears the thread is weak, just as a mage who fears NE. Ilver said one more thing right before the end. He said, the highest form of a necromancer is called a lich. Not because a lich is immortal. That is an oversimplification. Because a lich has reached full understanding of the cycle and is no longer either living or dead. He is the cycle itself. The transition between states. Zoten closed the book. He sat in the half-darkness of the basement. A lich is not the final form of evolution in the sense of power. It is understanding. The one who has understood the cycle completely. The system said, the final form is classified. Now I know what it is. A lich is not a monster from bad stories. It is a scholar who understood everything. Eris found him on the 4th day sitting on the floor with 3 open books at once. Have you slept at all? She asked. No. The undead do not sleep? Not necessarily, he said. She placed tea beside him automatically, then remembered, took it back. Did you find what you were looking for? I found more than I was looking for, said Zoten. Eris. A question. Yes? Your family kept these records for 230 years. Took risks. A pause. Why? Not simply because your great-grandmother asked. Something else. Eris was silent for a long time. Then she sat down on the chair by the wall. "My brother," she said. 3 years ago, he was a blade, an apprentice, a capable one. The academy." She fell silent. The academy conducted experiments, hidden ones. They were trying to create a blade who works with NE directly. They used apprentices. A pause. Without their consent. Zoten listened. "My brother did not survive," said Eris. "Evenly. Too evenly. The way people speak when they have repeated it many times and learned not to break at that point. The academy said it was an accident during training. I know what kind of training it was. That is where the personal reasons to dislike the academy come from," understood Zoten. "I am sorry," he said. "Yes." She looked at him. "That is why if a necromancer who stands against the academy needs the help of an herbalist, that herbalist will help. On principle." A pause. "I am not standing against the academy," said Zoten. "Not yet. I am studying." "Not yet," she repeated. "Good. When you stop studying, tell me." He built the second spell drawing on Sarah's notes. Autonomous NE logic. Not an erased creature. In space. A construct that exists independently of him, executes a given rule, dissolves when the rule is fulfilled or when he recalls it. Principle. NE mine. The construct is embedded in an object or surface. Rule. If a living creature with thread above a threshold value crosses the radius, it activates. A release of necrotic enzyme first generation, but directed, focused, requiring no direct contact. Problem. How to anchor NE to space without constant feeding. In earthly chemistry, polymers. Long molecular chains that hold their structure by themselves. They require no external energy to maintain their form. If the NE construct is built on the principle of a polymer chain, a self-sustaining structure, it will hold until it activates or is destroyed. 3 days of development, 7 failed versions. Either they collapsed immediately, or they activated from anything, including Zoten himself. 8th version, he added a filter. The NE signature of the thread differs from the NE signature of the undead. Different frequencies, if using an acoustic metaphor. The filter is tuned to the thread. The undead pass through without activation. Test in the forest. He set a mine by the trail. Ran a hair through it. Small thread, below the threshold it passed straight through. Ran a large forest boar through. Thread higher, activation. The boar collapsed after a second. The necrosis had triggered in the hind legs, controlled, not lethal. It works. System, second original spell created. NE mine, first generation. The principle of a self-sustaining construct, unique. The principle of filtering by energy signature, unique. The condition for the 4th evolution is approaching. Real combat. It happened on a Wednesday. Zoten was returning from the forest after training. Walking along the wall of Tiram, at night, in true form. Structural field activated passively, reading the environment. And he felt it. Not through demonic sense, that is a different story. Through NE perception. From the north, several creatures. Anomalous NE signatures, not like those of the undead, not like those of humans. Something in between. Alive, but with a high concentration of NE within. The system identified. Demonic beasts. Rank E+. Living creatures saturated with NE as a result of prolonged exposure to dead zones. Not undead, but close. Aggressive toward humans. They feed on the thread of living creatures. 6 of them, Zoten counted, moving toward the suburb. There are houses there. People are sleeping. Guards patrol near the gates. Not outside. They will not make it in time. He thought for a second. Simple logic. They will kill people. Cannot allow it. Less simple logic. If I intervene, I will be noticed. Risky. Even less simple. Demonic beasts are saturated with NE. Absorbing their NE will yield a great deal. Possibly enough for the 4th evolution right now. All 3 reasons point in the same direction. Zoten switched. Not into the guise, into working mode. He went toward the creatures. They looked like a hybrid, roughly the size of a large dog, 4 limbs, but the forelegs longer than the hind, the joints turned backward. Hide gray, with dark NE veins visible through the skin. Muzzles almost without eyes, 3 nostrils. They oriented by the scent of the thread. Thread hunters, thought Zoten. Blind to the undead. I am undead. They do not see me as prey, but they will attack as a threat if I am noticed. He tested it. One creature passed within 2 meters, did not react. Confirmed. It does not see him as food. Advantage 1. They ignore me as long as I do not attack. Advantage 2. They are saturated with NE. My necrotic enzyme works on biological tissue with NE. The effect should be amplified. Tactics. NE mines on the path to the suburb. The first wave slows down. Then a direct strike on the weakened ones. He placed 3 mines quickly in 2 minutes. The algorithm worked automatically, without unnecessary movements. The creatures came through. They hit the first one. 2 collapsed immediately, necrosis in the forelegs. The remaining 4 stopped, sensed the threat, began to scatter. Now, Zoten activated the structural field. Maximum radius, 5 meters. 4 creatures within reach. Knee. Not a single strike. Parallel processing. 4 streams simultaneously. Into each creature its own. Necrotic enzyme into 4 points at once. Collective sense. No, that is a different story. Simply concentration. The creatures began to fall. Not instantly, not cinematically. Methodically, the cascade of necrosis unfolded in each at its own pace. One held on longer, larger, higher, NE saturation. It lunged at him. He dodged, made contact with its paw through the glove, and directed an amplified stream. 6 creatures, 4 minutes, silence. Zoten stood over 6 dark carcasses and listened, not to sounds, but to NE flows. The NE from the dead creatures was leaving into the air, dissipating. He drew it in, absorbed it. System. NE absorbed from 6 demonic beasts of rank E+. Bonus for NE saturation. Total. Significant accumulation. 4th evolution unlocked. Then, from behind. A sound. Light. A single step on hard ground. Very careful. Zoten did not turn immediately. First a scan with NE perception. 1 person. Alive. Thread-trained. Dense. A blade. He turned slowly. Ren stood 15 meters away, the same attentive hunter from the first day. Zoten recognized him immediately. Ren was looking at him. At the 6 dead creatures. Back at him. A sword in hand. Not raised. Lowered. He is holding it, but not attacking. Silence. He saw the end of the fight, thought Zoten. How much exactly? Unknown. He saw me clearing the creatures. Did he see the NE constructs or not? Can blades sense NE? Through the thread in the blade? Possibly. What is he thinking? Reading a face in the dark is difficult, but he is not attacking. That is important. Ren spoke first, quietly, precisely. You killed all of them in 4 minutes. Yes. Alone? Without weapons? Yes. A pause. You are not human, said Ren. A statement. The same as Eris had said earlier. Not a question, an assertion. No. Undead. Silence. Yes, said Zoten. Ren lowered his gaze to the dead creatures, then raised it to Zoten. They were heading to the suburb, he said. There are families there. I know. That is why I am here. A long silence. Ren was clearly processing. Quickly, professionally. A fighter assessing the situation. Why? He said at last. The undead have no concern for people. Usually, Zoten agreed. I am unusual. Sentient undead. Yes. That does not happen. Evidently it does. Ren looked at him for several more seconds, then sheathed his sword. He sheathed his sword, noted Zoten. That is a gesture, meaning he has decided not to attack for now. You live in the city, said Ren. I visit the city. I saw you before. On the first day. Tracks by the tree. That was you. Yes. You were hiding then. Yes. Now you are not hiding. Now you have already seen, said Zoten. There is no point in hiding. Something flickered across Ren's face. Not a smile. Close to it. Logical, he said. The silence lasted. Not hostile? Thinking? Both stood in the dark over the dead creatures and thought. I will not tell the Academy, said Ren at last. Why? Because you killed 6 creatures that were heading to my village, he said simply. And because sentient undead that protects people is not something the Academy should know about. They will destroy you without trying to understand. Absorbing gaze. No, not that skill. Simply chemical signatures. Ren spoke. An even scent. No rise in cortisol. No signs of the kind of lies Zoten had already learned to read through biochemistry. Truth. Good, said Zoten. One condition, said Ren. What? If there is a threat to the village or the city again, you are here again. Zoten thought for a second. A deal, he said. Ren nodded, turned to leave. Ren, said Zoten. He stopped, without turning. You are the one who almost found me on the first day. You sensed something at the roots. A pause. I sensed something, said Ren, but decided it was my imagination. He was quiet for a moment. I was wrong to decide that. He walked off into the darkness. Zoten stood alone. 2 people know now. Eris and Ren. Both, for different reasons, are staying silent. This is either luck or the system is building something deliberately. It does not matter. Keep working. The system flashed. 4th evolution ready to activate. Zoten went deep into the forest, to where the trees stood dense and the night was true darkness. He sat down. He activated. System. 4th evolution. Necromancer of the middle path. Rank B. Body changes. Height unchanged. Appearance. No significant changes. The blue NE channels beneath the skin have become finer, almost invisible in ordinary lighting. Eyes in rest. Completely ordinary. Upon NE activation. Blue, with a vertical slit pupil. Source. Fundamentally restructured. No longer only in the bones. The NE network permeates the entire body evenly, like a nervous system. Output increased 40 times compared to the first form. Skill unlocked. NE resonance. The host senses all NE flows within a radius of 50 meters. Living creatures, dead objects, the threat of mages. A full map of the energetic surroundings in real time. Skill unlocked. Raised with logic. The host embeds an autonomous behavioral algorithm in a raised creature. Up to 5 rule conditions. The raised creature acts independently within the rules. Skill unlocked. NE synthesis, initial. The host can create simple organic compounds from dead matter through NE. Speed, slow, complexity, limited. This is the first step toward working with the cycle in both directions. System note. NE synthesis is the first skill operating in the direction of life rather than death. The principle of the dual cycle is beginning to be realized. Condition for the 5th evolution. Synthesize living tissue through NE. Until the 5th evolution. Understand and reproduce the biochemical process of living tissue synthesis through NE. Zoten read the last condition slowly. Synthesize living tissue. Through ENE, the energy of decomposition. Use destruction to create life. In earthly biochemistry, this is called necrobiosis, the state of a cell between life and death. Reversible necrosis, a cell that has died but can still be revived under the right conditions. I spent 3 years studying how cells die. Now I need to study how they come back. This is precisely what the Academy considers impossible and dangerous. That is precisely why it is true. He stood up, looked at the sky. It was getting light, the first gray light between the trees. Zoten, he reminded himself, former Kim Jae-hoon, a postgraduate student, died at a desk. Now a necromancer of the 4th form, in a world where the Academy executes people like him. With 2 allies, an herbalist with a personal grievance and a blade who had seen too much and decided to stay silent. With 3 original spells. with an army of 0 raised, for now. With the understanding that the final form, Lich, is not a monster. It is a scholar who understood the full cycle, methodically, as always. He went to the city, to the library, where the next book he had not yet read was waiting. About the biology of regeneration in this world. About how the living returns from the almost dead. The body was found the next morning. That large creature which had held on the longest, the biggest of the 6, nearly 1.5 meters at the shoulder. Ne saturation high, biology dense, muscle fibers 3 times thicker than those of an ordinary animal. Zoten stood over it and thought. Raised with logic. The first real one. Condition for quality. Understanding of biology. Meaning, study first. He spent an hour. The read death skill gave the basic. It died from necrosis in the muscle tissue, quickly, without agony. Good. The structure was preserved almost untouched. Then he worked with his hands, methodically, as in a dissection, not cruelly, simply necessary. The creature's anatomy proved interesting. A double nervous system, one standard, the second Ne conducting, parallel. Like his own. A living creature with Ne nerves, meaning in dead zones this was an adaptation. Selection had favored creatures that could work with Ne directly. If I raise it, the Ne nervous system will remain active. This means the raised creature will sense the Ne field around it, effectively an additional sensor. Muscles dense, fast, built for explosive movement. Joints flexible in both directions, allowing changes of direction without loss of speed. 3 nostrils like all these creatures, complex olfaction across different molecular groups. A hunter. A well-made hunter. Behavioral algorithm, 5 rules. Rule 1. If a creature with thread attacks me or the master, attack. Rule 2. If a creature with thread threatens the master at range, stand between. Rule 3. If the master is not in my field of view, track the master through Ne sense. Keep distance no greater than 100 meters. Rule 4. If the master says stop, cease all actions. Rule 5. Do not touch creatures the master has not designated as enemies. 5 rules. Simple. Sufficient. Zoten directed Ne. Not quickly. He had already understood that the quality of a raise depends on patience. Slowly he filled each organ, each muscle group, the Ne nervous system separately, with special attention. It had to be the first to work. Then the algorithm, not in words, in Ne structure. Each rule as a separate construct embedded in the Ne nervous system like a conditioned reflex. 27 minutes. The creature opened its eyes. Not white like the raised in bad stories. Simply dark, without the spark of life, but looking, perceiving. The Ne nervous system was active. Zoten felt how the raised creature was scanning the space around it. It stood up, not clumsily. Correctly, according to the anatomy Zoten had studied. All 4 limbs, weight distributed right, head level with the master. It looked at him. Ne signature of the master registered, he understood through the feedback. Algorithm active. Rules loaded. Stop, he said quietly. The creature froze. Instantly. Go. It moved. Stop. It froze. Zoten looked at it for a long time. The first one, he thought. Simply. The first. The system recorded, raised with autonomous logic created. Quality, high. Biological accuracy of the raise, 94%. Algorithm efficiency confirmed. The Ne nervous system of the raised creature is active. The host receives a passive Ne signal from the first within a radius of 150 meters. 150 meters, noted Zoten. An additional perception radius. Eyes and ears that walk separately. Good. Problem. Where to keep it during the day? Not in the city. In the forest? Hunter patrols. Dead zones, he recalled from Eris. Forests with high Ne. People do not go there. There are other creatures of the same kind there. The first among them will not stand out. It will wait there. He sent the first away through Rule 3. Keep distance no greater than 100 meters. The The creature went into the forest. Zoten felt it through the NE connection. An even pulse, calm, like a background process. It works. He went to the city. Eris met him at the entrance to the shop, not inside. Outside with the look of someone who had been waiting and was nervous but did not want it to show. "Come in," she said quietly. He came in. She closed the door. "This morning," she said at once. "Two people from the academy. They were asking the merchants if anyone had seen NE flashes near the northern wall at night. Someone saw something, not Ren. He is staying silent. A random passerby or a guard on the wall." "What did the merchants say?" asked Zoten. Most had seen nothing. The blacksmith near the gates said he saw blue light. A pause. They wrote it down, went back to the academy. "Blue light," he repeated. The NE constructs were glowing. "Of course. I need to learn to make them invisible. The structure exists. There is no obligation for it to glow. That is an unnecessary side effect. Eliminate it." "Will they come back?" he asked. "Soon. The first time is a preliminary survey. The second, with artifacts." "With NE detection artifacts," understood Zoten. "That is worse. Artifacts do not ask questions. They simply show. If I am in the city when they begin scanning, how much time do I have? A day. Maybe two," Zoten thought. "My masking, rank B, 4th form. The system said that mages below the 3rd rank will not sense the demonic nature during a standard scan. An artifact is not a 3rd rank mage. It is an instrument that searches specifically for NE. Different things. If the artifact is tuned to an NE signature, it will find me. If tuned to the undead in general, the masking holds. Unknown. Which artifact they have?" "Eris," he said. "Academic detection artifacts. Do they search for the undead, or for NE as such?" She thought for a second. "The undead," she said. "I read it in grandmother's notes. Artifacts are tuned to dead thread, what the undead passively emit. Pure NE they do not catch. Too many natural sources." A pause. "But a necromancer who actively uses NE creates a residual trace. If the trace is fresh, the artifact will see it." "Residual trace," he repeated. "Meaning, do not use NE in the city while the artifacts are active. No constructs, no structural field, passive mode. This is inconvenient. Passive mode reduces perception, but manageable." "One more thing," said Eris. Her voice shifted, a little quieter. "They were asking about a necromancer, not just about NE flashes. Specifically, necromancer or not. This means the Academy is already assuming, not searching for something unknown, searching for something specific." "How do they know it is a necromancer?" he said. "They do not know. But 6 dead creatures with no signs of ordinary weapons, no threat on the bodies. Only NE." A pause. "The only thing that kills like that is a necromancer. Logical. I left evidence. Next time, remove traces, bodies, or mask them as a different cause of death. Learn from mistakes." Ren appeared in the city on Thursday. Zoten saw him at the market by chance. He was walking past and NE resonance gave the signal before his eyes did. The dense thread of a trained blade. Distinctive, already familiar. Ren, here, in civilian clothes, not patrol uniform. First impulse, leave. The second, he stayed. Ren had not seen him yet. Then he did. They looked at each other across the market crowd for a second. Ren nodded, barely perceptibly, turned and walked in the other direction, not ignoring, not pursuing. He acknowledged that he saw him and let him go. This is communication, brief without words. "I see you. Everything is fine. We each go our own way." Ren is smart. An hour later, in the alley by the library. Zoten was heading back. Ren was standing by the wall as if by chance. "The Academy is searching," said Ren, not looking. "I know. They are bringing artifacts the day after tomorrow from the main city." A pause. "Not standard ones. Special. They search specifically for a necromancer's NE trace. Special, meaning Eris was wrong, or she did not know about the new models. How do you know? Asked Zoten. I am a blade. It is my business to know when the Academy conducts a purge on my territory. Ren finally looked at him. These artifacts see the residual trace of NE constructs. Up to 7 days after use. 7 days. I used constructs 3 days ago. 4 more days the trace holds. There is a way to remove the trace earlier, said Zoten. Not a question. He was thinking aloud. I do not know, said Ren. That is your domain. My domain. A residual NE trace is dispersed NE that has not yet dissolved into the natural background. Like radioactive decay. Simply wait, or accelerate the decay. If I direct active NE into the place where the trace remains and trigger controlled dispersal. In theory, possible. In practice, I need to try. I will sort it out, said Zoten. Good. Ren pushed off from the wall. And one more thing. Those creatures you killed. I removed the bodies before dawn, before the patrol came. Zoten stopped, removed them, took them out to a dead zone. There are many of that kind there. A pause. No bodies, no questions about weapons, only the NE flashes from the blacksmith. He removed the evidence. On his own, without being asked. Why? Ren, said Zoten. Why are you helping? Ren was silent for a moment. Because those creatures were heading to the suburb, he said. My younger sister lives there. A pause. And because sentient undead that thinks before acting is more interesting than an academy that does not think at all. He left. Zoten watched him go. Eris, the loss of a brother. Ren, the protection of a sister. Both against the academy. Both helping. 3 people. 3 different reasons. 1 line. The system is building something, he thought again. Or simply people are choosing a side, on their own. That same night, Zoten went out to the northern wall, the site of the battle. The grass pressed flat, the ground darkened slightly where the NE had concentrated during the rays. The residual trace, he felt it through NE resonance. Not bright in the background, like a faint scent left behind when the source has long since gone. Remove the trace before natural dispersal. Principle: NE disperses into the natural background slowly. It can be accelerated if the structure is helped to break down. Like the catalysis of a chemical reaction, it would have happened on its own, but slowly. Add a catalyst, quickly. My necrotic enzyme acts as a catalyst for necrosis in living tissue. What if the same principle is applied to a residual NE trace? An NE enzyme for an NE trace. He tried, directed a thin stream of his own NE into the residual trace, not to feed it. The opposite, create within it a dispersal construct. Small, fast, single use. The residual trace began to break down. Slower than he would have liked, a minute per square meter. But it worked. An hour and a half, the entire site of the battle cleaned. System, new principle applied, NE dispersal, recorded as a potential 3rd-generation spell. Condition for formalization, bring to a stable construct. The 3rd spell found itself, noted Zoten. Good. He formalized the dispersal construct into a stable form. Another hour sitting by the wall. Found the minimal structure that worked. Named it simply dispersal. No fancy names. Necrotic enzyme. NE mine. Dispersal. 3 spells. All 3 created through the understanding of chemical principles. Not one taken from books. Good. Condition for the 5th evolution. Synthesize living tissue through NE. Zoten sat in Eris's basement with open books from her collection and thought that this was the most difficult task the system had given so far. Decomposition. Understood. Take a structure, break it down, release energy. This NE does naturally. Synthesis, the opposite. Take components, assemble a structure, invest energy. This is what the thread does. Life. The system says I can do both directions. NE synthesis is unlocked. but unlocked at the initial level. The efficiency is so low that synthesizing living tissue from scratch is impossible for now. What is possible? Regeneration is not synthesis from scratch. Regeneration is the extension of an existing structure. Cells divide according to a template that already exists. I do not need to create living tissue from nothing. I need to trigger cell division using Ne as energy in place of the thread. This is a different task, fundamentally more realistic. Eris brought a lamp. It became lighter in the corner where he was sitting. "You've been staring at one point for 3 hours," she said, thinking. About what? About how to revive a dead cell without making it alive. Eris looked at him. "That sounds like a contradiction." "It sounds like necrobiosis," said Zoten, "a transitional state. The cell is neither living nor dead, capable of resuming its vital activity with the right impulse." "In grandmother's notes," said Eris slowly, "Ilver said that the highest necromancer stands between Ne and the thread." A pause. "Are you trying to do that?" "I am trying to understand the mechanism." Zoten looked at her. "Eris, your gift, sensing Ne. Can you feel the difference between dead and living Ne?" "Yes. Dead is colder, heavier. Living is warm, mobile. Colder and heavier. This is not a metaphor. This is temperature and density. Different physical characteristics. Living Ne, if such a thing exists, must have a different molecular structure. Less ordered, more dynamic. In physics, this is called entropy. Dead, Ne. Low entropy, ordered. Living, high, chaotic. If I increase the entropy of my Ne during synthesis, will it become closer to living? Will it become compatible with living tissue?" "Eris," he said, "my Ne. Is it cold or warm?" She extended her hand. Not touching, simply near. "Cold," she said, "but not like ordinary undead. A little warmer, more mobile. I already differ from standard undead. Understanding of principles changes the quality of Ne, meaning the path is right. Understand more, Ne will become warmer, more alive. The fifth evolution waits until I understand enough." The first practical attempt at Ne synthesis. He took a cut branch, alive when cut, already beginning to die. Directed Ne, not to destroy, not to disperse. To sustain. Hold the cells in the transitional state. The branch did not come back to life, but it stopped dying. It froze at the boundary. Necrobiosis, controlled. This is the first step. System. Ne synthesis applied. Controlled necrobiosis created. This is not synthesis of living tissue. It is the preceding step, counted as progress. Until the fifth evolution, proceed from necrobiosis to full synthesis. Direction correct. They arrived on Friday. 2 of them, in white cloaks with 4 stripes on the sleeves. Not local mages. From the main city, this was readable in their manner of carrying themselves, in the quality of their artifacts, in the way the local academy mages received them with an exaggerated courtesy that somewhat resembled fear. Zoten observed from a distance, from the roof of a warehouse, in true form. Not in the body of the undead, in passive mode, no active Ne. Ne resonance. Off. Completely. This too is active Ne that leaves a trace. Artifacts, 2 objects, one resembling a compass, a disc with a rotating arrow, clearly reacting to Ne sources. The second, a rod with a glass crystal at the end, it glows when approaching an Ne trace. The compass for finding the source of Ne. The rod for reading traces. The compass is being directed in different directions, searching for me right now. Not finding me. Masking holds in passive mode. Good. The rod, they are heading to the northern wall. Checking the site of the battle, he observed. The mage with the rod stood by the wall, moving the crystal over the ground. Slowly, thoroughly. The crystal did not glow. Zoten could see this even from the distance. The dispersal worked. No traces. The mage tried again. A different angle. Nothing. They conferred quietly between themselves. Zoten could not hear. But from the gestures, disappointment. They had come for a result. They received emptiness. They will leave with nothing, thought Zoten, or they will stay and search longer. They stayed. For 3 days they walked through the city with the compass and the rod. They questioned residents. They checked the market, the library, the academy, the suburbs. Zoten spent 3 days almost entirely in the forest. He went into the city only once, briefly, for something that could not wait. Without a single active NE, simply a man in a cloak walking through the market and doing nothing. The compass in the mage's hand at the other end of the street did not stir. Masking holds in passive mode, he confirmed. Meaning the strategy is clear. In the city, always passive mode. Northeast only outside the city. On the 4th day the mages left. Ren conveyed through Eris. They found nothing. They concluded it was a natural NE surge from an underground dead zone. The matter is closed. Zoten read this and felt what in his past life he would have felt when an experiment delivers the expected result. A quiet, yes, correct. It works. The next month was quiet. Zoten worked to a schedule he had built himself. Morning, the library. He read everything he could find on the biology of this world's creatures. Anatomy, physiology, behavior. Every studied creature, a potentially high-quality raised being in the future. The knowledge base grew. Day, Eris's basement. The great-grandmother's notes contained more than seemed apparent on first reading. There were observations on the interaction of NE and the thread, on necromancer's attempts to create spells that worked with both energies. Most attempts had failed, not because it was impossible, but because the necromancers had tried by force, not through understanding. They were not scientists, thought Zoten. They were mages who had found a forbidden area. They tried to master it with magical methods. The methods were not suited to the task. I am not a mage. I am a biochemist. I look at this as chemistry. Chemistry operates by rules. Rules are learned through experiment. Experiment requires patience and records. I have all three. Evening, the forest. Experiments with NE synthesis. Progress was slow, but it was there. Controlled necrobiosis. Mastered fully. He could hold a cut branch in the transitional state indefinitely as long as he maintained the NE flow. The moment he stopped, the branch died further. Not synthesis. Sustaining. The difference is fundamental. Synthesis requires not sustaining, but triggering the reverse process. Not holding at the boundary, pushing it back toward life. What does a cell need to trigger division? Energy and a signal. The energy, NE, will supply. The signal is a molecular signal, specific. In earthly biochemistry, growth factors, hormones, cytokines. Here, the thread. The thread is the signal of life. Without the thread, a cell does not divide. I have no thread. A pause. Or do I? He thought about this for an evening, then a night. Then in the morning in the library he read distractedly. The thought would not let go. Ilver had said, "A necromancer who understands the full cycle works with both energies. NE and the thread. Two poles of a single cycle, not opposites, parts of one. If they are parts of one, there must be a transition between them, not a jump, a smooth transition, an energy continuum. My NE is already warmer than that of standard undead. Eris feels this. As I evolve, the NE shifts toward what Eris calls more alive. What if at the boundary, when NE is warm enough and mobile enough, it becomes compatible with the thread? Not becomes the thread, but creates conditions in which the cell perceives it as the signal of life. This is a hypothesis, cannot be verified until the NE has changed enough, meaning, keep evolving. The system will lead to the moment when it can be tested. Patience. Ren came to the forest on his own on Sunday evening. Zoten felt him through NE resonance half a kilometer away. Thread dense even, calm. Not a hunt, a walk. He was sitting by a small fire, the first lying nearby, head on the ground, its NE nervous system passively scanning the forest. A perfect sentinel. Ren came out into the clearing. He saw the first, stopped, put his hand on the hilt of his sword. It will not attack, said Zoten. You have not been designated as an enemy. Ren looked at the first for a long time. That is one of those creatures, he said. The largest one. You raised it. Yes. Ren slowly took his hand off the hilt. He approached carefully. Stood 3 meters away, studying it. It does not move like a dead thing, he said. Coordination is normal. I studied the biology before the raise. Quality depends on knowledge of the structure. This. Ren went silent, searching for the word. This is a different necromancy from what they talk about in the academy. In the academy, they speak about necromancers from 200 years ago who worked blind, said Zoten. I have a different approach. Ren sat down, not beside him, but at the same fire. He was quiet for a moment. May I ask, he said. Yes. You are undead, sentient. This in itself is impossible by everything I was taught. A pause. How did it happen? Zoten thought for a second. Ren helped twice. He stays silent. He removed the bodies. Now he came not on business. Simply came. This means he is curious. Not as a hunter, as a person. I died in another place, said Zoten. Not in this world. I was reborn here, in the lowest undead form, with a mind that was preserved. Ren processed this. Another world, he said. Yes. Was there magic there? No. Science. A pause. The study of how things are structured, through observation and experiment. That is not very different from magic, said Ren. Unexpectedly precise, noted Zoten. Ren is smarter than he appears at first glance. It differs in one thing, he said. In magic, there are ready-made answers, templates, spells, systems. In science, there are no ready-made answers, only questions and methods to test them. And you apply this to necromancy. Yes. Ren looked at the fire. The Academy fears people like you, he said quietly. Not because you are dangerous to people, because you ask questions they do not want anyone asking. More accurate than any description I could have given myself? Yes, said Zoten. The first raised its head. Something in the forest. Both looked in that direction. A small creature passed far off. NE resonance showed. Not a threat. The first lowered its head again. Does it react to your thoughts? Asked Ren. To an NE signal, said Zoten. I send it. It reads it. Not words. Images. Algorithm. Algorithm, repeated Ren. You use words I do not know. Rules of behavior embedded in its NE nervous system, Zoten rephrased. Clearer. Ren stood up, looked at him. I am leaving tomorrow for patrol. A week. A pause. If the Academy appears again, Eris knows how to reach me quickly. Good. Ren turned to leave. Stopped. Zoten. Are you planning to simply study? Or to do something with what you learn? To do something. Become a lich, said Zoten calmly. Ren turned. He looked. That is the highest form of necromancy, he said slowly. The Academy says a lich is a monster that wants to destroy the living. The Academy says many things that do not correspond to what is written in the original sources, said Zoten. A lich is a necromancer who has understood the full cycle, NE and the thread, the boundary between the living and the dead. Not a monster, a scholar. A long silence. When you become a lich, said Ren at last, what will change? I will be able to do what is impossible now. A pause. And I will understand it well enough not to cause harm to those who do not deserve it. Ren looked at him for another second. Good, he said, then become one faster. A pause. Before the Academy finds you again. He walked off into the darkness. Zoten sat by the fire. The first breathed beside him, evenly, mechanically, the NE pulse calm. 3 people who know, 3 who say, go forward. This is unexpected, methodically, we keep working. The system, quietly, in the background. NE synthesis progress, 31%. 5th evolution approaching. System observing. 31%, read Zoten. 69 ahead, nothing to it. We will figure it out.